Only on Fox, a series of crimes and a web of deceit. Alex Murdaugh, a once prominent lawyer whose family spent more than 4 decades locking up criminals in the Low Country, now finds himself looking at years in a jail cell.
I mean, it's a Shakespearean tragedy, right? I mean, a man who is at a high level falls from grace and crashes.
One of Murdaugh's attorneys, Jim Griffin, sits down with me as his client is facing insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and filing a false police report. He turned himself in shortly after being accused of faking his own killing back on September 4th. He hired his drug dealer to make it look like a random shooting. SLED charged both men. The botched shooting just 89 days after Alex Murdaugh found his wife Maggie and son Paul shot to death on their property in Colleton County, which remains unsolved. Murdaugh also is being sued for stealing what could be in the millions of dollars from his law firm. There's also allegations he's stolen millions from his clients. His former firm, PMPED, which was founded by his great-grandfather more than 100 years ago, says Alex submitted false documentation to the firm and to clients that allowed him to funnel funds into fraudulent bank accounts. Then you have his former housekeeper of 20-plus years, Gloria Satterfield. She died from a mysterious fall at the Murdaugh home in 2018. Her death has since been reopened by SLED. Lawsuits claim Alec worked with fellow attorneys and businessmen who were friends of his to steal upwards of $4 million from Satterfield's 2 sons who were promised a wrongful death lawsuit. What about stealing from his firm and clients?
There's nothing in the world that will justify what he did, honestly, and I'm not going to justify what he did. And he's not trying to justify what he did. It's, doesn't make him a murderer, though. It makes him a, for what he did. I mean, if he did it, everything he said he did, it makes him a person who did a really bad thing and brought discredit to his family, to his firm, and I can tell you, he is mortally ashamed of what he did, and that would have led him to kill himself. I can promise you that's how ashamed he was. I mean, he is going to have to account for his conduct with regarding client money and law firm money. There's no question about that, and there will be justice rendered in that case, and there will be severe consequences, I anticipate, for Alex. He's not going to get away with that, and we're not advocating for him to try to get away with that, and he's not trying to get away from it. He's prepared to accept responsibility for all of that.
As Griffin said, it doesn't make him a murderer. Now, he is referring to the double homicide investigation of his wife and son. Alex Murdaugh was named by SLED as a person of interest in the killings and remains a person of interest tonight. Now, last month, People magazine came out with a report that the Murdaughs were having marital problems. In fact, the report on September 29th stated this. According to the source, Maggie drove 1 hour from the family's home into Charleston in late April to meet with a lawyer to explore her options about ending her marriage to Alex Murdaugh. This source was cited as a law enforcement source familiar with the investigation. I asked Jim about this report.
If anyone out there spoke to Maggie about seeing a divorce lawyer, please have them call me, because we've been trying to chase that rumor down, and we cannot. I have spoken with those who are closest to her, who she would have confided in without a doubt, and no one knows anything about that rumor. We don't think it's true, but if someone actually has some substance to it, call my office. It's unfair to Maggie for people to be out there saying this if it's not true. We don't think it's true. It's unfair to her parents, and it's unfair to her family, and it's a disservice to her memory if it's not true. So if someone knows that, please come forward.
I wrapped up my interview talking about the totality of what he's taken, along with his co-counsel, Dick Harpootlian, since both men agreed to take on this original case in 2019.
It's been an evolution like the story has evolved, right? we were hired to represent Paul, and we were preparing to represent Paul. We were preparing for trial. We felt like we had a very defensible case. During the course of that, we got to know Maggie and Alex, and I can promise you, when I got that call on Monday morning, June 7th at 5 a.m., you know, my world stopped too, because I really cared for Paul, and I cared for Maggie, and I was floored. And as soon as I could, I was there, and you know, I was there for the family. I was there for Alec, and I saw him in the throes of grief, and I've committed, you know, that to myself, and that I would do what it took to help the family through this. And so I've been on that road since then, and so has Dick. But you know, we were all thrown a huge curveball on September the 4th.
September 4th, the day Alex Murdaugh confided in him, his 20-year addiction to opioids, his admission to stealing from his firm and clients, then the botched attempt to stage his own homicide later that day on September 4th. Well, tonight, Alex Murdaugh remains in a long-term rehab facility where we are told he's learning to live without depending on opioids. While the next chapter has yet to be written, his attorney admits one of those chapters, whether it's a book, a Netflix series, or HBO documentary, will be told from a 6x8 room.
I've never known any lawyer in the state who has engaged in conduct which he is alleged engaged in, who've been found guilty, who didn't go to jail. People have gone to jail for a lot less, so I don't anticipate that that his consequences will be any different.
Only time will tell, and you can bet we will continue to follow every single investigation underway as they develop. Over the last 2 nights, we've broken this interview up into 4 parts so we could share with you everything we covered in this interview in Jim Griffin's office.